Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of XboxEra 1v1, where I get the privilege and pleasure to chat to independent developers, creators, industry pundits, you name it, all about the latest goings on in the industry. But this week, it's a very special one because I get to talk about and talk with one of the creators of one of my favourite games from this generation, Genesis Noir. Welcome, Evan from Feral Cat Den. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's really a
It's a
pleasure to
pleasure.
speak with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always nice to be able to chat to developers from across the industry. So I always relish the opportunity when I do, especially when they've made unique, and I'm going to say this word, and I don't mean it negatively, oddities that are almost art in and of itself in Genesis Noir. So I want to kind of just give the audience a preamble if they've never played this game. It's a And I'm hesitant to fully use the word game. I personally, and in my review, I said it was an interactive experience, right? So this is game dev meets art meets sound and audio design. And it's created by your studio, which I believe you co-founded with your colleague, Feral Cat Den. So before we get into anything else, where did the studio name come from, and why Feral Cat Den? Are you a cat lover? Like, what's going on there?
I definitely love cats, but the name came from like an offhand comment I made to one of my friends. So my background is not actually from the games industry. I studied new media design with my co-founder Jeremy, and we moved out to New York City and started working in kind of like advertising kind of stuff, like interactive websites to promote movies back when Flash was really big.
Yeah, I remember the
Maybe
days.
interactive installations and motion graphics. Um, so we really loved doing those kinds of projects. They're like very short, projects. You spend a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, and you get to try out so many different skills and different visual styles. But we were really hungry for something uh, that would have a bit more legs and could be more independent focused. So like I was just always talking to my friends and being like, oh, we should just, like take a year off from our commercial work and just buy a barn or like some place that
Live the
it's so,
dream.
so cheap and it's just filled with feral cats.
And
Yeah.
that the studio was born.
Yeah. So I hated it. My buddy just kept on referring it to as the feral cat den. I was like, dude, we could think of a better name than that, but it just stuck and now I'm
Oh,
now
the
I'm pretty
best things
happy with
do.
it.
The
Yeah.
best things do. I absolutely love it. Like it's one of those studio names. There's another developer who did the Artful Escape, which I'm not sure if you've seen. It's another again a medley of sound and audio and visual, right? So in some ways quite similar in terms of ethos, I suppose, to Genesis Noir. But their studio name is Beethoven Dinosaur, and it's just like, what does this even mean? Where does this come from? But then the dev of that particular studio is like a bit of a rock star. Like he went and became a rock band and then quit touring because he was like, this sucks. I want to make video games. Crazy that it's that way round, but there you go. So you guys buy a barn, the feral cats all move in, and you start plugging away at Genesis Noir. How long did it take you to actually come up with the concept? Was it some seed of an idea there before it actually started ramping up into production, or?
Yeah, it was a very long process from conception to release. So I got like me and my co-founder Jeremy, we're always making little side projects together, and we knew we wanted to make something more substantial. We like had made little games for our friends, but nothing serious.
Yeah.
And I had read Cosmic Comics by Italo Calvino, and I was just incredibly inspired by it. It's this collection of short stories that blend a scientific concept and really strange cosmic stories, but with like very human qualities.
Mm.
So, for instance, one of the stories that like has really resonated with me is called "The Distance of the Moon," and it's about how well each one of these stories begins with a short paragraph about a scientific theory. So, this particular story is about how the moon was created after a celestial object collided with the Earth.
Yeah, it's like a bit of the earth, right?
Yeah. And you can imagine all the debris like orbiting the Earth. And over time, it all coalesced into our moon. But it took however many years until it settled to be the current distance. So Calvino takes this really interesting scientific concept and imagines that there are people or like cosmic beings that are somehow living on the Earth. And what does it mean for the moon to be getting further and further away? And he takes this into like such imaginative directions where there are oceans on this Earth, and the moon is so close that the tidal forces pull the ocean up into like a mountain. And people
Oh,
row out on
wow.
boats and they put a little ladder and they climb onto the moon. So it's just this like wonderfully imaginative story that's not necessarily trying to educate you about the scientific theory, but
I love it.
of it, and it kind of sparks your interest in learning about it on your own time. So it just like engaged both halves of my brain, and Jeremy and I are both like really interested in both art and science. So it just I shared it with him, and he was immediately a big fan too. And I was walking to work one day and just looking at the New York City skyline and just realized that the Big Bang sounded like a film noir already. And
Yeah.
it just seemed like a way that we could pay homage to this piece of art that was very meaningful to us, but put our own spin on it, a little bit of genre that uh, kind of was influenced by our time living in New York City, and yeah, create our own story.
Yeah, it's crazy to me because when I first played it, I was like, oh, as I went in, and I'm like, okay, and it frustrates me somewhere that I still see some outlets refer to No Man as Norman, which drives me nuts. But whatever, that's beside the point. That as I'm playing it, I'm sitting there going, oh my god, hang on a second, is this an allegory for the creation of the universe? And then as the gun goes off, and I don't want to give too many spoilers in case anyone's watching this that hasn't played Genesis Noir. You absolutely should. But the whole game is effectively a metaphor for the creation of life, the universe, and everything around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes from the life being formed in the oceans to the stars overhead to us as human beings discovering that world around us. Like it was crazy to me when I played it. And it blew my mind a little. And I absolutely, it's one of those games that you can load up on a screen because it's not about pushing the biggest realism in terms of technology or the fanciest graphical effects. It is literally beautiful art meets incredible sound, and we'll get to that in a second. And grand ideas, which is one of the best things about video games, in my opinion, is when you combine all of that, you get absolutely crazy stuff. So you guys made Genesis Noir. It launched really successfully a number of years ago now. Now I think of it. God, I'm getting old. You guys had it on Game Pass. It did very well. And we thought it was the end, right? And I don't want to give again too many spoilers, but there was a kind of half true ending. There's two kind of ends to Genesis Noir. And it feels like as I watched the Nirvana Noir trailer, I was like, are they kind of referencing that in the previous game? Because you've kind of got two different worlds now in this sequel. So Nirvana Noir has been announced. It's coming out hopefully later on this year. What's the grand impetus here? Because you left us on that kind of like both of these are technically possible endings with Genesis Noir. Where did Nirvana Noir come in? What's the new allegory that I should be looking for here? Well, don't give me too many spoilers, obviously,
Yeah. Well, yes. So the game concludes with a choice, and our main character, No Man, is this noir detective that, like so many archetypal noir detectives, he's living in his past, all his regrets and mistakes. He's aware that he's, what he's attempting to achieve, the odds are against him, and he's marching towards failure. And I feel like a lot of noir protagonists have these qualities, and he's representative of this idea of like determinism and time.
Yeah.
So he's living with his failure in the past, with his failure in the future, and he eventually gets his first choice. And we thought that was like a really interesting place where the character ended up. And we kind of came to the realization that, well, if the game ends with a choice, is there a canonical choice that he made?
Yeah, That's often a problem many games
Yeah.
face, right? Is they force you to pick something and then they ignore what you chose and go with something else that they like. And it's like,
Yeah. So that didn't feel right. And then we kind of realized that no, the character is living both of these lives. Like, and what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be oscillating between two versions of yourself? And it's taken a lot of time for us to kind of like that felt like a really interesting direction for the character and the
yeah.
world, and we get to play with color and we get to play with black and
Oh,
white and alternate between them. But it's taken a long time for us to like really hone in on what that means for the character, what that means for the storytelling and the themes. And it's a real joy to kind of go, this is what I love so much about art making is like you don't always know why you're drawn to something,
yep.
and by pursuing it, the world is kind of like giving you that the answer to that, like why are you making the thing you are. So yeah, we feel like this is an opportunity for us to expand on this character living with this decision and living with the just the choice to that he had to make at the end, or the choice that he didn't make.
Perhaps he becomes No Man Schrodinger because he kind of
Yeah.
exists in both, right? That's his
Exactly.
surname for official canon.
Yep.
Now, yeah, you're absolutely right. You mentioned this explosion of color, and color was used in Genesis Noir, but it was used sparingly. It was used also as a way to kind of direct the player a little bit at times. When I first saw the trailer and I thought Nirvana Noir, I was like, okay, well they taught me a lot in a way a video game only can about the creation of the universe and the Big Bang. Are they going to delve into the unscientific, the human aspect in terms of what happens to us after we die? Where we go, because that's where I kind of perceived it. We have these two worlds. We have the Genesis Noir-esque black and white detective world for No Man, and then we have this bright visual heavenly almost world of splendor. And I'm wondering, am I kind of on the right vibe here? Again, I don't really want to spoil it for myself, but I'm
Yeah,
curious.
absolutely. Yeah. So like the first game is all about exploring ideas about physics and astronomy and hard science
Yeah.
fiction kind of things. Like we end up with some spaceships and go into the future, and we can't really do that again. We
No.
can't really, you know. Um, so for this game, it's an exploration of more metaphysical concepts and spiritual concepts of like panpsychism and cosmic consciousness and dualism, monism, all these kinds of things.
Oh.
So yeah, maybe not as many spaceships, but a more
We'll
grounded.
travel in other ways.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I love the concept of it. I'm fully ready to have my mind blown again later on this year. I mentioned earlier that and we've seen it earlier this month. I think Ninja Theory just released quite the opposite of Genesis Noir, right? This ultra high level AAA behemoth that is Hellblade 2.
Mhm.
But I actually regard it as quite similar because it's more of an interactive experience
Mhm.
than what you would say is a traditional video game. But having said that, I also saw in the trailer there was a lot more going on. And I'm just curious from an expansion of, gameplay possibilities in terms of that interactivity. Are you guys evolving that in unique ways? What's the plan there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first game is very linear. We you have a set of levels that you can explore, and those are generally, like a 15 to 30-minute experience that is centered around a single idea. But they don't necessarily connect with one another in a very like a driving plot kind of
Yeah.
way. And they're more about poetry and mood and tone than about action or events or an intricacies of a conspiracy that you might find in a lot of noir storytelling. So with Nirvana Noir, we wanted to challenge ourselves to tell a more intricate story. And this is also due to like the setting that we have. In the first game, you travel across the whole history of the universe. So like trying to tie together a hunter gatherer and like a astronaut
Yeah.
was a little tricky. So,
You did it.
yeah. But in this game, you're in like a cosmic city that this Big Bang gunshot was fired in. So now the emphasis is more on, well, what does it mean to be a cosmic city, and who are the people or beings that occupy the space, and how can we tell a more interwoven, interconnected plot and narrative while still maintaining the kind of abstract and poetic uh, interactions and
Yeah.
art direction that we really enjoy.
Awesome. And then so I presume then, on one hand we've got the no man of one decision, gumshoe detective traveling the dark streets of Cosmic City to do whatever he may do, solve crimes, etc. And then we've got the other one that made the other decision, who's gone to the Nirvana side of this saga, this sequel. And that's where we see all of our colors and a different style of interactivity and gameplay. It sounds fascinating, I've got to say. Now, I know that you guys are launching a Kickstarter for this second go around. What's the? I know you did the same for the first one, and us at XboxEra, we're no strangers to Kickstarter ourselves. We kickstarted a book back in
Nice.
2020. It was definitely an adventure.
Yeah.
We're going to do it again at some point because it's really fun to try and pull something together. What's the impetus between for Nirvana Noir going back on Kickstarter again a second time? Is it to pull in more feedback and more users and more interest and scope and stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, from a just like a business standpoint, being able to get that feedback and build that community early on is so valuable. And also the challenge of, well, we have to present this in a way to people. It focuses your creativity.
Yeah.
And we found that extremely valuable. Like if we didn't do the Kickstarter, which is a pretty stressful experience.
I am 100% with you, man. Like, I know.
Like if we didn't have that experience, and then we try to launch an indie game that we worked on for so long, like it would have been. I think I would have had a panic attack or end up in a mental asylum.
I am
like,
so with you on this. Yeah.
It's a nice releasing that indie game is it's a huge experience. So like this is a nice stepping point. So yeah, being able to get all that feedback, get people on board, that's all great. But we also really want to invite people to contribute to the game. One of the elements that we had in our Genesis Noir Kickstarter was that people could leave messages in these spaceships. And to be honest, we didn't really think it through as much as we should have. But the backers, they just got exactly what we were going for in the game. Like, it was amazing. And they contributed so much beautiful stuff that a lot of people actually read through every single one of the backers' messages, and it contributed to the experience and the themes in ways that we didn't intend as authors, but the world, the community all brought in. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, we're just that was so amazing that we want to do it again and do it a bit more intentionally. And so there's a couple scenes where we're hoping that people are going to contribute to the game, and it's going to be a focal point, not just something that you could walk past. And
you're not just ticking a box.
Yeah, but it's going to be a big psychedelic moment where everyone, the more weird and fun messages and personal messages that we get, I think
I'm intrigued.
I'm make the
looking forward to seeing that.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds very, very intriguing indeed, and quite the perk for a backer as well. They get early access, and they then get to have a little part of themselves in this cosmic adventure. It sounds pretty cool to me. I mentioned earlier that you guys, worked quite well with Microsoft. The original game launched into Xbox Game Pass when it came out, if memory serves, and it looks like repeating that relationship again for the sequel. So. What's it been like working with the team at Xbox and Game Pass on this and bringing it into the service? Have you guys noticed there's a lot of conversation around the highs and lows of subscription services, right? Do you guys find them beneficial primarily in the end? Is it the difference between getting a game done and not? et cetera, et cetera. What are your thoughts?
Oh, it's absolutely great to work with Xbox. Um, yeah, very effortless. We pitched them the idea. They were actually uh, really crucial on this project happening because um, we had so many, like, we didn't know if we were going to do another game, just because getting Genesis Noir across the finish line was such an ordeal.
Yep.
Um, but we felt like we should start presenting ideas, and Xbox, they signed up us without even a prototype, just with us having
They
created a
trusted.
pitch.
We've
They
seen the
trusted us.
previous vision. We're going to
Yeah.
go ahead and just say yes again. That's pretty
So
cool.
that's very, very meaningful for our small team to be making a game that is a little risky, um, to get that feedback, to get that support. And yeah, I think having that backing of a big
Trillion
company,
dollar
yeah,
Microsoft.
to like kind of give you some legitimacy and um, say, hey, this is worth your attention, is really great. And
Yeah.
who knows what the opportunity cost of having, if we were to release it just on Steam or whatever, or just for sale, as opposed to being on the subscription service. But I think it's gotten us a lot of attention that otherwise we wouldn't have. And one of my favorite things about being like as an artist, getting my work out there, is that the subscription kind of model just it encourages people to try stuff. And
Absolutely.
that's my favorite thing, is like people say like, oh, I saw this game. It is not my kind of game. I gave it a go and I finished it, or I appreciated what they were trying to do here. And I like, that's a behavior that I have when I'm playing, like like watching things on Netflix or HBO, or
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
games on Xbox Game Pass. Is like, uh, I didn't, I'm not maybe a big sim guy, but occasionally I'll just download it and see what it's like, and
Yeah, try your
know how
hand
to
at
make
it.
it hooked. Yeah,
I can definitely say firsthand, I've experienced so many more genres of
yeah,
games that I would normally be like, yeah, and that's the difference, right? If the difference is, I could, oh, that looks interesting. Oh, it's $20, it's $30. I'm probably not going to give that a go because it's not my genre, so I'm not even going to lift a finger to try. Versus that looks weird, click, and
yeah,
it's just instantly accessible to me. Is a world away from, and the other problem I think that games have nowadays, and I think it's not spoken about enough, is there are so many.
yeah,
There are so many games. We get a regular release of everything that's just releasing on Xbox a week, and it's in the 10s, 20s, 30s. It's like, when does any one human being have enough time to play all of these games? So
yeah,
I think having the exposure on Game Pass is probably a massive benefit for you guys. But equally, I love, when I'd played it, so much of our community were like, this isn't normally my kind of game, but thanks for the review. I'm going to go and give it a go. And it was amazing for me to read the feedback of like, this blew my mind, and seeing people excited then for the sequel. Well, oh, what am I going to learn about this time?
hmm,
Because I think that was the biggest thing for me. I actually ended up showing my son, he's 10 years old now, Genesis Noir, and explaining to him the scientific concepts behind it while he was twiddling the stars. He didn't fully get it, but he was blown away by, oh, look what I can do. And it was very cool. And I love that is what games can bring as a medium. There's
hmm,
stuff that I think that only games can do. And so many games nowadays, and I tire of the AAA side of the industry a little bit, because I think a lot of it is just repeating stuff that was done 10, 20 years ago. But I love it when we see random experiments in interactivity and art and sound. And I do want to touch on sound because I think this is an important thing. The soundtrack for Genesis Noir was absolutely awesome.
yeah,
My partner is a trombone player, and she was in love with it. You're bringing them back for the sequel, right? This team of
yeah,
awesome musicians. Oh,
absolutely.
thank God.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet? Like, was that just like, we need a jazz soundtrack, let's go find a jazz band? Or like, how did that come around, that
Uh,
relationship?
yeah, so we worked with Skillbard, who are a team of composers and sound designers in the UK, and they're phenomenal. I absolutely have to say that Genesis Noir would not work at all if it wasn't for their the incredible sound that they added to it. You know, there's people like to say, you know, sound is more than half of
Yeah.
like the image, and it absolutely. I remember making little prototypes, and it works in like a playing for a minute, but as soon as you play for more than a minute without audio, it's just I'm in a void and I don't have feedback, and I'm not like, what am I doing? But as soon as we put in some skill bard's audio, it's like, oh, the world's alive. This all of a sudden
makes sense now.
This makes sense, and I'm motivated to continue exploring, even though the visuals are so sparse. So yeah, they are the true artists, and we're working with them again. The story of how we met them was that Jeremy and I were working on our vertical slice, and we were like, oh crap, we need to add audio to this. We weren't thinking about it at all. Yeah. So I started like making a list of all my favorite composers and musicians from like the motion graphics animation world, like short films and commercials. That's the kind of like area that I know very well. And Skillbard, like, they just have made like done all my favorite shorts and all my favorite like commercial.
Amazing.
And I like put them, you know, towards the top of my list and showed it to Jeremy. He's like, oh, those guys, they've messaged me like a year ago. They want to work on our game. And I was like, Jeremy, like, are you serious?
Go get them. The perfect culmination is almost like fate. It was meant to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's some determinism for you. It's perfect. Well, it's great here that they're coming back for Nirvana Noir. I mean, I presume because the soundtrack, or the little bit that I've heard from the Nirvana Noir trailer, was just as bombastic and brilliant. So I was like, that sounds like the same guys. Let's hope so. The Kickstarter is launching when, dare I ask?
On June 4th. So it should be live.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah.
Wow. We'll put up links in the description below, and we'll put some blurb up in a written version of this to get it out in time. But if you were to, and I'm going to put you on the spot a bit here, so apologies in advance, but if you were to have like an elevator pitch of why anyone listening to the interview should consider backing it on Kickstarter, what would that elevator pitch be? Aside from me saying, guys, this is going to be a really awesome game, you should probably go check it out. What would your pitch be?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I just want to mention is that we're trying to create an experience that doesn't require you to play Genesis Noir. But if you have played Genesis Noir, I think you'll really appreciate this game as well. So it's a neo-noir adventure where you explore this cosmic city and try to stop the Bigger Bang, which is threatening to destroy the city and the people that live in it across these two realities. One that's a black and white, traditional noir story, and the other colorful and psychedelic. So it's a poetic and abstract adventure game with a really rich conspiracy that I think is going to surprise you and be a memorable experience. And if you back it, then you get to be a part of the experience, and your message and your drawing can be in the game and make the experience better for everyone.
Awesome. Sounds good. When is the game targeted for actual release? So we know it's coming to Game Pass, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, later this year.
This year would be a bit ambitious. So
fair enough. Okay, so next year.
2025.
Okay.
Unfortunately, game development is always
way
slower than we expect it to be.
No worries. So 2025 is when we can expect the game to land.
Yes.
But obviously, backers will get updates and plenty of things along the way when it launches tomorrow onto Kickstarter. So you can absolutely keep an eye out for that.
Also, one thing to mention with the Kickstarter is that we're really excited to be partnering with Lost in Cult, who are one of the best game art book and vinyl publishers. So yeah, we're really excited for that as well.
Ooh,
You're gonna
art
have a really
book.
beautiful art book.
Okay. Well, okay. I mean, there's enough tidbits and tantalizing teases there to whet anyone's appetite. So, to anybody listening or watching right now, I would absolutely recommend to go check it out. We'll put the links in the description below, and obviously you can find them over on XboxEra.com. Evan, I wish you and the rest of the feral cats in the den the absolute best of luck with the Kickstarter as you progress towards launch next year. I will be watching and waiting, and I may even sneak in a backing of my own there because I can't resist being in a video game. This sounds great. But yeah, honestly, real pleasure to chat to you today, and thank you for taking the time out to just give us a little bit of info and detail on you guys, the team, what the new game is. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Nirvana Noir later next year.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Cheers.